All right, friends, it's time to give you loyal listeners a discount on protein powder. You may or may not know, but I launched my very first protein powder 2 years ago. It's a grass-fed beef isolate with only 3 ingredients: grass-fed beef, either organic cacao or organic vanilla, and organic monk fruit. Now, if you don't want any of the added flavor and sweeteners, you can also just get unflavored. And no matter what flavor you choose, you're getting over 23 grams of protein per scoop, which is going to keep you full and satisfied between meals. I love starting my day with a Fab 4 smoothie and breaking my fast with that much protein. It makes a serious difference in my cravings and blood sugar balance the rest of the day, and I've seen it with my clients as well. Now, I never thought I'd own a product company, but when I got pregnant with Sebastian, I realized the majority of protein powders were chemically extracted or enzymatically extracted, and I wanted to use heat and water only. I wanted minimal ingredients because we don't need those emulsifiers, fillers, or added vitamins, minerals, and probiotics. All of those additions increase the chances that it's not going to work for your body, whether it be bloating, digestion issues. I just wanted pure, clean protein to keep you full and satisfied so you could build the most delicious Fab 4 smoothie. And I have to say, I'm pretty proud of the flavor. If you take a look at our reviews on Amazon, you'll see 5-star reviews for flavor. And that is key, because if you don't love your Fab 4 smoothie and you don't love drinking your protein powder, you're not going to do it. It won't become a habit, and it's consistency that outpaces everything. So if you're here and you're listening and you want to give our protein powder a try, use the code podcast5 for $5 off your order. And let me know if you love it. My favorite ways to apply this protein powder is in my Fab 4 smoothie, making freezer fudge, making chocolate milk, making hot chocolate, and throwing the unflavored into all my kids' baked goods. So let me know how you use it. Let me know if you love it, and share this podcast deal with your friends. Hey friends, welcome back. Today's guest is Jordan Younger. She's the blogger behind the popular wellness and lifestyle blog, The Balanced Blonde, and she started blogging full-time in 2013. And since then, her blog has turned into a book, a podcast, a brand, and an incredible community of humans who love her. In 2017, Jordan was diagnosed with Lyme disease. Since then, she has been an absolute Lyme warrior, sharing her healing journey openly with her community. So I wanted to bring her on the show to talk about the disease. Lyme disease is the most common vector-borne disease in the United States, and 300,000 people are diagnosed every year. But it's estimated that thousands go misdiagnosed as well. Our hope is that we may be able to help someone listening. So without further ado, I'd love to warmly welcome my dear friend, Jordan Younger, to the show. Tell our listeners a little bit about you if they don't know who you are. I can kind of give you guys a little intro to Jordan. She's an amazing wellness blogger and a wellness expert. She's had her own journey with health, and I feel like you have been constantly for years, as long as I've known you, trying to figure out what was going wrong with you, and why you didn't feel your best. And why don't you introduce yourself to our listeners and tell them a little bit about yourself and kind of how it all started, and, a little bit about the Balanced Blonde.
Yeah. So literally since you've known me, which was like 4.5 years ago when I moved back to LA, we sat at this table, but I was sitting on that side and you were sitting on this side. Do you remember?
I remember.
And you taught me about the Fab 4 and the science of food. And I was so grateful because I needed the guidance so much at that time, because I was definitely struggling. I had just moved back to LA from New York and went from the blonde vegan to the Balanced Blonde, transitioned from like this really strict, rigid vegan diet to the Wild West, which I call it, because I just didn't really know what I was getting into. I just knew I've been very restrictive. I think I have an eating disorder, orthorexia, among potential other eating disorders, and I just need to get healthy. So for me at the time, that looked like dropping the labels and learning about food with the help of people like you.
So before you keep going, I'm going to cut you off for a hot second. For our listeners that don't know what orthorexia is, can you explain to them what that means?
Yeah. So orthorexia is the obsession with health and wellness and kind of like the fear and avoidance of a lot of different foods that don't fall into the category of like safe and healthy and pure and clean and from the earth. It could be different for everybody, but for me, it was like safe foods were very limited. It was a range of like vegetables and fruit and juices, tons of juice cleanses for me at that time. And then I wrote a book about it, Breaking Vegan, all about orthorexia, which I'm proud of because I feel that it helped a lot of people who were suffering from orthorexia and disordered eating and just being too strict, labeling themselves. But it's funny because looking back, I now can put the pieces together in a totally different way, knowing that I've been sick with something else for a long time, with Lyme disease, which I've probably had for at least a decade without being diagnosed. And I finally got diagnosed last year in June. So pretty wild. And like I look back, I haven't reread my book in a long time or ever, but I mean, I read it a lot like when I was editing it, and I know I was just suffering from something that to me was unexplainable. And I wanted it to be an eating disorder because that was something I could learn about and get control over and heal. But really, I only got sicker over the last 4.5, 5 years. So here I am now. It's been a journey, and I share all about that on my blog and Instagram, which has become kind of like a blog to me too. And just realizing how many people suffer from all of these seemingly unexplainable symptoms has inspired me to share, and sometimes maybe too much. I mean, not such a thing, but like,
no, if people feel like you're oversharing, they can unfollow.
Well, exactly.
You know, like this is your safe space is your community, and people are following you because maybe they did deal with orthorexia, or maybe they have an undiagnosed issue and they need to figure it out. And I think you're an inspiration for people who have seen multiple doctors and don't know what's wrong and maybe they feel a little bit crazy inside because they're like, what is going on? And why can't I get to the bottom of this? And look at how long it's taken you being immersed in the wellness world to find out that you have Lyme.
Yeah. Isn't that terrifying? And with hundreds of thousands of very dedicated followers giving me advice and guidance as well, it was so rarely brought up that maybe I would have Lyme. And it wasn't until early 2018 that one person of all of these people that I'm in contact with all the time said, maybe you should see a Lyme specialist because you have, I'll just name some of my symptoms. I had hives all over my body. I had eczema on top of those hives. So uncomfortable. I had a fibroid on my uterus that had grown to the size of a grapefruit. So I too felt pregnant, but not with something exciting. A huge tumor on my uterus. So uncomfortable, pushing on my intestines and my bladder and all of my organs down there. So awful. Fatigue, which became so difficult. I went from, as you know, being super active, running a marathon, going to Orange Theory 6 days a week, doing yoga all the time, teaching yoga. I was never sitting still, to never getting out of bed and not being able to exercise, not being able to do hot yoga because of the hives and the exhaustion. Brain fog was getting so bad that things that inspired me, like blogging and podcasting, creating projects and like things I was always coming up with creatively, just felt like such a burden. And impossible to access. I would think back on my days of like starting to blog and creating things and think like, how did I have the inspiration and the motivation? Because right now I have nothing. So all these symptoms felt really unrelated at the time. I also had parasites in my stomach. And then I had parasites that I could see under my skin, on my legs. And
for the listeners out there, I mean, what are they looking for? What does it look like to see parasites under your skin?
Yeah, I'm happy to share this because I didn't know what it was. And I thought I had all these, I didn't know if they were like ingrown hairs that had become infected or like blood blisters. Because a parasite can be long and it can also be really small because they can get broken up inside of your body and your wherever else they exist, like in your stomach, and then how they got under my skin, I still don't know. But I had some like medium-sized ones. It would almost look like a worm under your skin. And if it's really inflaming the area, it will become like purple, kind of like blood blister-esque. And I had those like on my inner thigh, which is why I thought like, oh, maybe ingrown hair, but how painful, because it was the most painful thing I've ever experienced. And the way I was able to figure out what it was showing my Ayurvedic doctor at Surya Spa here in LA, Marta, because she had figured out I had parasites in my stomach. And I hadn't shown anyone these like strange looking things on my leg because I didn't know what the heck was going on. Didn't imagine everything would be so intertwined. And when she said, you have parasites in your gut, I said, oh, could you take a look at my skin? Because I think these might be parasites too. And she said, yep, that's pretty common. So I did some Ayurvedic remedies with like oils and different things to try to get them to try to kill them. And then you take them out with tweezers. I hope everyone listening is not like squeamish because I know this is pretty gross.
No, I'm into it. Yeah. I like all the TMI.
Yeah.
Because how do people gloss over everything? They're like, oh yeah, I sort of have some digestion issues. And it's like, no, you've been having diarrhea 6 times a day, every day. Like that's not digestion issues.
Right.
Like you have we have something going on and you need to be able to talk about it, to find someone to help you with whatever you're dealing with. So give us all the gory details because you know there is someone driving in their car or on a run listening to this podcast, and they are going to realize that they have parasites because of you.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like people who follow you are used to talking about some of these more intimate things happening with our bodies and our digestion. And I mean, the body is like a crazy organism. So lots of things happen.
We're an ecosystem for sure.
Right.
Trillions and trillions of bacteria cells living in and on you. So it would be a host for other types of organisms as well.
Yeah. If there's anything I've learned from having a disease, which we can get more into, is just what you said, that our body is an ecosystem and a whole entire universe for all of these bugs and parasites and good bugs too, the good healthy probiotics. So back to the parasites, all the Ayurvedic remedies didn't really do much to get my parasites out. So it's been kind of like a year-long battle, and over time they kind of just disintegrated under my skin. And I have some like funky looking leftovers, but they're on their way out.
Okay.
And it's also been a year of consistent treatment to get them out of my gut. So it's not a quick fix. It's like I did Ayurvedic herbs, Chinese herbs, called huma worm, which is like just all these parasite killing herbs that are really tough on the stomach in other ways, but it's so important to get those parasites out. And I thought I got rid of them because we killed a lot and you can see them when they come out.
So get into it. What are we looking for in the toilet bowl?
Yeah. So they look like worms. And from my understanding, there's a lot of different types. So there's like tapeworms, there's parasites that literally have like eyes and heads. I don't see those as much. But you can tell it's like one long worm, and it can come out by itself. It can come out in the stool, and it's something that you have to pay attention to. And if you're not looking, you would totally miss it.
I think everyone listening, and this might gross you out, but you should be looking at your poop. You should know, is it milk duds? Is it a banana? Is there something in it?
Right.
What does that look like? Because parasite eggs, for a lot of people who don't know much about parasites, you can get the worm, but you can also see the eggs.
Right.
And they can look like little sesame seeds.
Oh my God, really?
Yes.
Okay. I see those all the time. What the heck? I'm so glad the eggs are coming out. I seriously thought those were just like, I do eat a lot of seeds, but maybe both.
Maybe both.
Okay, yeah. Wow, so blowing my mind.
Let's make sure, because take me back to the spa. How did your Ayurvedic doctor know that you had parasites in your stomach?
Well, at first it was a guess because of all the symptoms. So I went in last January 2018, full body hives, fatigue, tons of cystic acne, just totally miserable. And her first guess was parasites in the stomach, and also with Ayurveda, very high pitta. So major pitta imbalance, which is like the fire, the heat, just being like way knocked out of whack, which is why my skin was on fire. And so I did a series of treatments with her for about 10 days called a panchakarma, where it's half like spa treatment, blissing out so nice, and half like really deep work for your body to detox, and you're exhausted. And there's like this thing called a pinda, which is like these hot milk, like it's like cheesecloth wrapped around, dipped in hot milk, and like they do this kind of like pounding against your body with it. And when you have hives, it is so uncomfortable and itchy. So it's not for the faint of heart. It's not just luxurious. It's for someone who really wants to heal in a very holistic, Ayurvedic kind of way. So that helped. And she estimated that like halfway through the panchakarma, I would start detoxing some of these parasites. And she was right. So that's how we knew, okay, you're right with the parasite track. Then I started the huma worm. But that was only one of my problems. And it was many months later that I was diagnosed with Lyme disease and co-infections of Lyme, which we can get into.
What is Lyme? How were you diagnosed? What are they looking for? What does it mean to have Lyme? And like, what are some of the symptoms and other diseases or ailments that come along with it?
Great question. Something I wish I would have known, like during all those years of trying to figure out from the time I met you and even 5 years before that, what was causing so many of my symptoms and health issues. So first of all, there's this misconception about Lyme that it only exists on the East Coast, in the Hamptons, Nantucket, places that are full of these specific deer ticks, which carry the bacteria of Lyme, Borrelia. And that's why here in California, it's so misdiagnosed, underdiagnosed, controversial. Doctors don't really learn about it in medical school. And it's just this huge problem. So Lyme is an infectious disease that you get from a bug. So usually it's a tick, but they've also found scientific studies that show mosquitoes carry Lyme, horseflies carry Lyme, fleas carry Lyme. So if you get bitten by any type of bug of that type, you could be infected. So not to freak people out, but I was such a lax person. Never, I think you know this just from knowing me as a person. I'm not the type of person to freak out about like, oh my God, like I got bitten by a tick. I don't go down the rabbit hole of researching like what could happen to me, maybe for better or for worse at this point, because I don't remember if I had been bitten by a tick or if I was, maybe it was like a decade ago or 2 decades ago. So I just don't know. But for anyone who's spent significant time outside, which is most of us, whether it's on a hike or swimming in the ocean or in a muddy swamp somewhere, like we are all exposed to these types of bugs. So I had heard of Lyme disease mostly because of Yolanda Hadid, who brought a ton of attention to it on The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills and had her story chronicled, which I kind of loosely followed, not really, because I didn't have any relation or interest in the disease at the time. But I knew she had it, and I knew she got a lot of flack for it because nobody believed her.
No, they thought she was making it up, or they didn't understand it. And maybe they thought she was a hypochondriac and she needed all of these like quote unquote treatments, and no one understood. But it is a real infectious disease that you can catch from a bug.
Right. So getting into what it's like and what some of the symptoms are, because I would see Yolanda's treatments on Instagram and TV. My mom is a huge fan of Real Housewives. So
mom too.
Yeah, I would catch a ton of like episodes here and there and see her getting these IVs all the time. And same with 2 of her kids who also have Lyme. And I would think, what is this disease and why does she have to get IVs and what's the purpose? And I wonder how she feels. So I later learned all of my symptoms that I had been experiencing, from the rashes to the fibroid, to the exhaustion, to the hormone imbalances, to the parasites and the gut issues, to the cystic acne, etc., can all be traced back to Lyme. But the crazy thing about Lyme is that it manifests in everyone very differently, and it really depends on how long you've had the disease. That's why I feel like I've had it for so long, because my symptoms went from manageable, like when I was in high school, to absolutely debilitating and chronic by this time, when I had gotten no answers for so long. So I was so lucky to find an infectious disease doctor, Dr. Erica Lehman. I like to give her name because if people live in Los Angeles or are open to working with someone via Skype, that's the question I get asked most frequently all around the world is, who's your doctor? She works in Beverly Hills, and I kind of saw her as a last resort because nobody could give me answers. You know, I've seen a lot of doctors, lots of nutritionists, lots of healers, and every day I was seeing a new healer. And I really went like the very holistic alternative route because I stopped trusting medicine and doctors, because even the most brilliant doctors who I admired and liked so much had no idea what was wrong with me. And they were pretty open about that. Some of them.
Yeah.
Others totally thought they knew, like, oh, it's all in the gut. Like, yeah, it is, but it's also like everywhere else. So seeing another doctor, I wasn't too thrilled about. And I saw her because I think I just had this little inkling in the very, very bottom of my heart that knew this is Lyme. And that scares me because I don't really know what it is. And I see people suffering with it. And it's a disease that I don't know if people can get rid of. But
can you get rid of it?
You can put it into remission and people can live totally Lyme free, which is amazing. So that's my goal. That's what I'm working toward. And that's controversial. Some people will say, yes, you can get rid of it. Some people will say never. But I've seen people put it into remission and live very healthy, beautiful lives. So finally saw Dr. Lehman, got a ton of testing done after all my own personal soul searching in Bali for a month by myself, water fasting for another month by myself, which helped on a spiritual level, and water fasting on an inflammation level, everything going down. But I knew I was so sick and everyone at the water fasting center who had a lot of experience with Lyme, because this is a very alternative health community, said, you have Lyme. So when you go back and you see your doctor and you get those test results back, let us know, because we can tell by looking at you. And
wow,
that was relieving, because I felt like, oh, okay, at least people get it. And like these people who have experienced it before were giving me a ton of advice, and they could recognize it in my skin, in my eyes, my demeanor, and also just like my health history. So I came back to LA, got my test results from Dr. Lehman, and I thought I was going to be so relieved to get a diagnosis and to have someone understand me and to have some answers. But it was truly the most overwhelming appointment of my life, because I did get diagnosed with Lyme and 12 different co-infections of Lyme and mold poisoning and mast cell activation syndrome, which is when it's a histamine thing where you basically become allergic to the world, which is what I felt was happening to me for all those years, but I didn't think that was possible. And parasites, and then just like a very, very, very challenging imbalance in the gut, where she was just like, oh my God, with your gut issues alone, I don't know how you can get out of bed. On top of that, you have a chronic disease, which they could tell from the blood tests I had had for more than 5 years.
Take me through the diagnosis of Lyme. Are they looking for the bacteria specifically? And do they find that bacteria in your body?
So from my understanding, which is loose because I have tried so hard to wrap my head around this, what they're looking for is, so first let me tell you what the CDC is looking for, the Center for Disease Control, because it doesn't match up with what these leading Lyme specialists are looking for now. So the CDC is looking for a certain amount of Lyme in the system, which is or in your body. They call it titers of Lyme. So I think there's like 15 different indicators. And if you have less than, I don't know how many for the CDC, let's just say 9. And I'm sorry to anyone listening who knows and wishes I was saying it right.
I can throw the CDC's requirements and then what Lyme specialists are looking for up in the show notes for people who feel like this might be what they're going through.
Definitely. So the sad thing is people will take these tests with like a conventional doctor. Maybe they'll have 3 of the 15 bands, and maybe they'll have 5. And because it doesn't hit that requirement, they are diagnosed as negative when it's really positive in their system, even if it's a small amount. So mine, from what I've been told, like far exceeds the requirement. And I would have been diagnosed with Lyme, even with a non-Lyme specialist, which is called a Lyme literate doctor, which is something you should look for if you think you have Lyme, a Lyme literate MD, which they definitely have in every state. And you can find on the Global Lyme Alliance.org. They're so helpful for people just searching for answers and education. So my doctor did a couple different kinds of blood tests where they search for the bacteria in your blood, and they can see how much you have. They can see all the different co-infections, which you can think of as like cousins of Lyme disease. Babesia, which causes severe insomnia, which I've had for so long. You know, like I would be like, Kelly, what can I take to make me sleep? And my insomnia would just rage for my whole life, like adolescence and beyond. So that's Babesia, and just countless other co-infections, which cause all different types of stuff. So yeah, that's what they're looking for with the Lyme testing. But the Lyme testing is just so controversial. And that's why it's so important to do it with a Lyme literate doctor who can look at the test and diagnose you based on your personal situation, not based on these requirements, which are super outdated. And like the CDC recommends 2 weeks of antibiotics. That's what insurance will cover. And then,
great,
quote unquote, you're healed.
You're like, thanks for the 2 weeks of obliterating my gut.
Literally.
And quote unquote, sending me into remission or being healed. That's not happening.
Yeah. So the only people that would work for are people who got bit by a tick, noticed it immediately, and got treated within like 2 weeks. So most of us, it's been longer than that.
Yeah. So where are you at today? How are you? I mean, you're obviously getting the word out for other people. What's your road to recovery? And how has your doctor taken your case into account to say like, well, we'll work on the gut first, or we'll work on, some of these co-infections. Where do you start? Where did she start?
That's an amazing question. So yeah, when I was sitting in that first appointment, my mom was with me and I surprised myself by crying. It was just such an emotional day of like celebration because everyone deserves answers. That's amazing. And fear, like, what does this mean? Do people with Lyme, are they able to heal? Are they able to have babies? Like, I didn't know any of these things. The answer is yes. But you do have to heal first, which is a long road. So my doctor, I feel so fortunate because in her office, she works with another doctor who has an ozone machine, and you can do IV ozone right there in her office, which cleans the blood and is one of the most top of the line ways to purify the blood and get that fresh ozone oxygen in there and kill tons of different bacteria, not just Lyme, parasites. You can do rectal ozone, which I was doing for a while with them.
What is rectal ozone?
They put ozone from the machine into like an enema bag, and then you go into the bathroom and put kind of like squeeze that ozone air right up into that area as you would with any other enema. And
does it have the same sort of effect as other enemas where you lose your bowels?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So you hold it in for as long as you can, 30 seconds. Like it's like salty air.
Sorry. I'm sorry. I just sort of have to laugh a little bit because I'm picturing you taking a booty breath, if you will.
Yeah, literally.
And trying to hold it in.
Yes.
Okay.
And they say like, if you can hold it in for 5 minutes, that's good. And I'm like, how? I mean, when I started, I had a very compromised gut. So maybe it would be easier now. But and you see all those parasites coming out. I mean, it is instant the way that it just kills the bacteria, which is incredible. So she had me doing ozone, IV, and rectal and nasal, because they also found mold in my nasal cavity, which goes right up to the brain. So freaky. Yeah. So we started there with the ozone and then with tons of different herbal protocols. So different blends of herbs that kill Lyme and about like 15 different supplements to begin with, because we also tested all of my nutrients and something I first did with you to finally figure out like, wow, I had ridiculously low iron and vitamin D and all of my B vitamins and vitamin C and ferritin. Basically everything was low. No testosterone, no progesterone.
So she felt like $1 million.
Yeah, exactly. Like my doctor was like, how do you get out of bed? I'm like, I don't know. I thought this was normal. I thought this is how everyone felt. And people just pushed past it to live life. Clearly, I got to a point where I couldn't do that anymore, which was a blessing, so that I could finally get this all figured out. So I started taking hormone supplements and all the different supplements and vitamins. And that was back in June. I can say 6-7 months passed. I really didn't feel any better, which was scary. You kind of feel worse because you're going through these Herx reactions. Herxing is when you feel worse before you feel better because it's the toxin die-off. And when you have these dying toxins in your body, you feel much worse than even the symptoms make you feel. But it's good because then that means you know it's working. So I spent another like 7 months in bed, kind of even more so than before, which concerned people who love me because they're like, wait, you're finally getting treated.
Why aren't you better?
And, right. So it's just a journey. So I've had to explain to people no, this is good. This is normal. This is, if you've read any like memoirs, like Yolanda's book, etc., you'll see this is how everyone feels. So luckily I had some people to look to and like just a couple of books to read because there aren't that many on the subject, especially memoirs, which I like to read. Mm-hmm. So did all that and did other things like the hyperbaric chamber, which they also have at my doctor's office, Myers cocktail IVs, glutathione, vitamin B12 shots. I started getting colonics weekly, acupuncture, cupping. I was still seeing the Ayurvedic doctor. I was literally doing everything, still am, because it's something I personally feel just has to be attacked from all angles. Eating a very specific anti-inflammatory diet. For me, that's been specific, salt, oil, sugar-free, vegan. I do believe it's different for everyone who's healing. But for me, that's been the only thing to keep those hives from coming back. So that's exciting. My gut has felt a lot better. I don't look 9 months pregnant, which is a plus.
Yeah, I think, and just from looking at you as a friend, and I would say, not like a coworker, but like we're always at the same events together.
We kind of are colleagues. We're colleagues. You know, if we had any colleagues, we would.
Yeah, in our little entrepreneurial lives. Mm-hmm. You're brighter. Mm-hmm. You're clear. Your eye, the whites of your eyes, your skin, your body, it looks less inflamed and it looks clearer. And, you know, I know that comes with getting diagnosed, starting to heal, having even just like a light at the end of your tunnel, and then clearing out and supporting your body to get better.
Yeah. Oh, I love hearing you say that. I know it's visible because it's, you know what I was like when I was feeling my worst.
I know.
And it's a huge visible shift, which took place over the course of many, 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 many months. There was no one thing. It was like everything. And then recently, so I don't really take any antibiotics. I get a lot of questions about this because there's so many different ways to treat Lyme. I take something called nystatin, which is an antifungal. You're nodding. That's been helpful in just like keeping the mold away. I was also diagnosed with this genetic mutation, MTFHR. So it's like makes things hard to detox.
MTHFR is methylation. So it's detoxification on a cellular level. And people have different types of mutations in that gene that can cause toxins to build up in their cells and make them feel sick. And if you have that gene, you definitely shouldn't be getting just regular random vitamins at CVS. You should make sure that, especially you'll see like B vitamins are methylated. They come in methylated forms. It means that they're broken down for you so your body doesn't have to do that work. But it would be so good for anyone listening. If you're interested in supplementing, try to do it under the care of someone who knows what they're talking about. Get your base level of nutrients, see where your deficiencies lie, and then take steps to support your body, because sometimes it can make you more sick.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so interesting. So all those supplements I had been taking in years past, who knows if they were absorbing, or I've noticed people with that gene mutation. It's so common with those of us who have Lyme. And well, I'll get into that, but I don't want to get carried away from what I was saying, because the other thing that's really helpful is I started getting an antibiotic IV after like 7 or 8 months of no antibiotics, and I wasn't feeling better. I was feeling worse. I was just feeling so sick and tired. So finally my doctor said we could try IV antibiotics, which could either be through the blood or a shot. So I do them in my blood just because the shot really hurts. And it's called Rocephin. And that antibiotic I've been doing for like 6 weeks. And it's been about 6 weeks since I've been feeling better. So I don't know if that was just a miracle because of where I am now in my healing. So is that next step? I've also done tons of spiritual things that have helped a lot. in that journey, which is a whole other journey.
I did see that you're sharing poetry now.
I am. I started writing tons of poems in Bali last year, like hundreds, where I realized like, wait, maybe this is part of my calling. And I'm a total believer that the universe will hit you with what you need when you need it. I didn't think I wanted to write poetry or needed to. I thought I wanted to write all sorts of other things when I was in Bali, but I surrendered to what the universe was giving me, really, which was just this access to these words that were flowing together. And it became really healing for me. And it's been a huge part of my healing journey. So I do share it on The Balanced Blonde, but I wanted to have a place that was for poetry because my amazing followers, audience, friends on The Balanced Blonde have seen me through a lot of shifts. And from food to lifestyle to sickness and beyond. And I didn't want to just like turn it into a poetry account, but maybe I will, like down the line. I'm just very open to see where this journey will take me because I know and I deeply believe people don't get sick for no reason. You get sick to up-level your life and to get healthier than where you started and really learn what's important. So I thought a lot of things were important for a long time that just aren't, like working all hours of the day, not making time for special people in my life. When you get sick, all of that is just shattered away. And you realize, like for me as well, like, why am I slaving for 50 brands a month? I love a lot of those brands, but a lot of them I didn't. And I just like cleaned up my whole life, my whole business. And for 2 months, I didn't work. And
you recondoed your work life.
I did.
If you don't love it, let it go.
Right. Exactly. It didn't spark joy. So I stepped back. And also during that 2-month time off, that lined up with that same time of like 6 weeks ago, starting to heal, starting to actually wake up with energy again, starting to actually feel like a human again and understand why people like my mom said, don't plan your wedding for when you're super sick. And I was just kind of like, why? Because I was so used to feeling so sick. I forgot what it felt like to be healthy. Now I have energy and I feel healthier and I have a long way to go. So I'm very dedicated, but it's an exciting time.
I'm so happy to hear the optimism in your voice. And, it's never a straight path, right? But I think we talked about this before we jumped on. It's so important to be your own advocate for health. I wish I knew more about it when we first got together, but I also know that like, if you are in a place where you don't know what's going on with someone and you're a practitioner out there or a nutritionist or an RD or a doctor, functional MD, don't guess. I mean, we can look at charts and we can circle the things that maybe are out of range or don't seem right. But the perfect example is looking at all the things that didn't seem right on your blood tests and still not knowing the major cause of it was Lyme.
Yes, you're right. And I finally got to a point where like 2018, I was so frustrated because I knew there was a root cause. I was like, no. People like myself do not develop all of these symptoms unrelated. And it was when I finally grasped that these parasites under my skin and my chronic fatigue and my lifelong stomach issues and everything else were one. That's when I finally really fought hard. And I thought I was fighting hard before. I was doing what a lot of people out there weren't. I had a functional medicine doctor. I had countless alternative holistic healers. I had a lot of research of my own under my belt, but that wasn't enough. It's becoming an epidemic. There's 300,000 people diagnosed per year. And if you imagine all the people who are not getting diagnosed, if I wasn't getting diagnosed with my blog in the wellness world and like speaking to hundreds of people a week trying to figure out what was wrong with me, then a lot of people aren't getting diagnosed. And I'm estimating probably at least 1 million people a year are contracting Lyme. And it's getting worse because these bugs are not dying. And because of climate change, they're just living, having babies, reproducing, not dying, infecting more horses and rats and animals outside who then infect humans. So people can get Lyme because their dog has Lyme, which is so sad.
Wow.
And an animal who has Lyme is just so sad, but they can be healed too. And the amount that I've learned in the last 8 or 9 months has been pretty mind-blowing. Since that one day in the doctor's office, feeling totally terrified. But if anyone out there feels like maybe this is something they might have, just know that you're not alone and you can heal. And there's a ton of amazing doctors out there.
Lyme literate doctors.
Yeah, Lyme literate doctors and great organizations like the Global Lyme Alliance and many others that are working to raise awareness and education and fundraise so that some of these tests can change what's actually covered by insurance and what's not covered by insurance. Because the other really sad thing about Lyme is that pretty much you have to pay out of pocket for all of your everything. Treatments, medications, with a few exceptions. Some of the tests are covered, some of the antibiotics.
They're like, great, we'll cover for you to find out that you have Lyme, but we're not going to give you the resources to heal.
Right. And I mean, the test that I did, which is called IGeneX, is not covered by insurance. And that alone is like several $1,000s. So my doctor had said, well, we don't even have to test you for Lyme. We can test you for everything else. And down the line, we can test you for Lyme because we'll start treating you for like the gut and everything else first. And I was like, no, I'm sorry. I came to you because you're a Lyme doctor and I need to know what I have. So I was fortunate to be able to afford the test at this stage in my life. If this had been 5 years ago when I had just graduated college and I only had as much money in my bank account as the test cost, I would have been like, sure, let's not test for Lyme. But I would have been at the disadvantage of still not knowing what I had.
Yeah.
So it's really sad. And I really hope and believe that it will change with time and with people advocating and with stories getting out. And yeah, if you're sick, if you have Lyme or anything similar, share your story with friends and community. Start a blog if it inspires you, because you can get the word out.
Yeah, I think that you've done a great job at doing that. And I'm sure that if you haven't heard yet, I'm sure you've inspired someone to find out or to get tested for Lyme. And if it hasn't come in yet, I'm sure that you'll be really a tipping point for someone to find out that and be diagnosed with.
Yeah. I mean, since I shared in June about my diagnosis, I would guess that at least 1,000 people have told me that they then got tested and found out that they had Lyme, because I've had all of these amazing people following me for 6 years, and a lot of them follow me because they can relate to my symptoms. So they had similar symptoms to begin with, lots of these people. So it wasn't coming out of nowhere. Right. I was like, wait, maybe our whole community is suffering.
Yeah. Someone's like, this. I'm dealing with what she's dealing with, and I can maybe figure out what's going on. Wow, look at that. You're making you're changing people's lives for sure.
That feels good. And I do feel I was put on this earth to get sick and change people's lives and help them heal and help myself heal. And we can all get past this.
Yeah. Integrate it into your life. Be a spokesperson for those out there with Lyme fighting it who can heal. And then get married to Jonathan. Make me a number of cute little babies.
We absolutely will. I can't even wait. And I mean, I should say, speaking of him, he's been so supportive, and I feel so lucky because Lyme and similar chronic illnesses can devastate relationships. And when I was first diagnosed, I didn't know what was going to happen to us because like what attracted us to each other was we are these healthy, active people. I couldn't get out of bed for a year, but he is a good soul. You know this. And
I wanted you guys to get together forever.
I know. You were the original. And like, everyone knew
hey,
before
Jonathan,
me.
Do you know my friend Jordan? He's like, yeah.
Yes, you were Cupid. And he totally credits you for like the very early stages. And everyone said, my mom, like people saw it before we saw it. But yeah, he learned quickly how to be a supportive partner to someone who's sick. And I learned a lot too. Like tons of compromise goes on when you're sick and it's like, okay, well, I feel like shit, but I'm your fiance and we live together and I still want to make you feel special and understood and heard. So lots of compromise there because I just didn't want to move. But then he's really done just so much to make me feel so loved. And that's good.
You deserve that love.
Yes.
And look at this. All this compromise is just practice for when you have a bunch of kids.
Definitely. I mean,
You're going to make parenting easy.
Yes. I mean,
you're learning it so young.
Right. We moved in together. We got engaged. I got diagnosed all at the same time. So we escalated. We learned a lot. I mean, he proposed like 1 month after my diagnosis.
He loves you no matter what. That's what real marriage and partnership is about.
Yeah, exactly.
Thick and thin.
Yeah. That's what everybody deserves. And that's a part of healing. Surrounding yourself with people who love you. They might not understand how you feel, and you definitely can't expect them to, because God forbid they ever have to feel that way. But as long as they're open to learning about it and supporting you, you just have to tell them what you need. Right. For me, it was like, I need you to come to my doctor's appointment sometimes because I need you to hear from a professional, like what my symptoms are. Yeah. So that you just get it. And he's like, okay, like I've never known that I should do that, but he did. So
I love that. Well, you are so loved and I'm so proud of you for constantly following your heart. I think when you're out there on the internet and you're sharing your whole life, you're open to a lot of criticism, right? And you've changed and you didn't just keep your path. It wasn't just a straight path for you, right? Lots of turns along the way, but you've always stayed true to yourself. And I think that's really inspiring. It's been inspiring to me. And I'm sure your whole community. And if those of you guys listening haven't ever ventured over to the Balanced Blonde on Instagram, you'll find yourself down a rabbit hole of love and spirituality. And it's just a really raw, but loving place to be. So I'm so thankful for you for coming on today and for sharing your story. I know that you're probably going to change some lives of those listening. So thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. So happy that you have a podcast and so proud of you. And this was so fun. Yay. I'm never on the other side. I mean, I very, very rarely. So thank you.
Yes. Love it. Love you, Jordan.
Love you so much.
Bye, babe.
Thank you for listening to Be Well by Kelly. Please subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Learn more at BeWellByKelly.com and follow me on Instagram at BeWellByKelly. I would love if you picked up my books, Body Love and Body Love Every Day. They're sold on Amazon and at all major booksellers.